Hello, I'm Steve Fishback with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Public Affairs Office, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with Chief of Police Johnny Jennings as we talk about and welcome you to 2 years since being sworn in as our Chief of Police. So welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
And Chief, I do have to start off with one really important question. It's a question that actually pertains to most of our out-of-town folks coming in. And everybody knows you come into a city for the first time, you're looking around, hey, where do I want to eat? I'm looking for that good local place to eat. People always stop and ask the cops, right?
Yeah.
So where's a good place to eat? So, Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Favorite place to eat in Charlotte?
Wow. Come on now. At home, let's say that. There's nothing better than good home cooking. I'm not really a restaurant guy. I don't go out to eat lunch and all of that. But I tell you what, if you're coming to Charlotte, especially from out of town, you can't pass up the barbecue. And there are a couple of great barbecue places. Noble Smoke is a great barbecue place to have. And you have there's another one that skips my mind right now. Max on South Boulevard is another good place to eat. But there are so many good restaurants in Charlotte, and I feel guilty even mentioning one or two of them because there's so many good ones. But if you're coming to Charlotte, you have to give the barbecue a try because I think it's the best in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you born, raised in the Southeast. So barbecue's a big thing down here.
Yes.
Another tough question. What kind of sauce?
Man, if I'd known the questions were going to be like this, I wouldn't have agreed to do this. So, I like to mix them, right?
Okay.
So I love the Carolina barbecue, the vinegar-based barbecue, but then I also top that off with the tomato-based barbecue sauce. So I like to mix them up a little bit. And then there's nothing better than throwing a little Texas Pete on top of that. So
okay.
You gotta drown the barbecue up really good, but you get it right, it's going to be one of the best meals you can have here.
Okay. All right. Last barbecue question. Although I'm tempted to keep this going all day. Pork or beef?
Oh, definitely pork. Yeah, pork. A lot of people don't eat pork, but there's nothing better than a good tender beef brisket. But if you're really looking for true barbecue, I've got to go with the pork.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
now I'm hungry. So
that's right.
Yeah.
We'll have to shorten this up then. All right. So people see you walking around all day, wearing your Class A's, a stand up here, a speech to our troops there, and they have this image of you. But what a lot of people don't know is you're a huge fisherman.
Yeah, well, I try to if I have the time. So obviously I live on the lake. I got my bass boat, and any chance I get, whether it's on the lake or in a pond, I grew up fishing. So my dad, when I was younger, we would go out as much as we could, and we'd go bass fishing for hours and hours at a time. There were some school nights that hopefully we won't call social services or anything. It's too late for that. But there were some school nights that we'd be out till 11 o'clock at night fishing, and just loved it. It takes you away. It gives you a little time to decompress, and so I get to a point, whether I'm catching anything or not, it's just that soothing, calm moment for me to be on the water, and if you're catching fish, even better. But I just love that whole concept of getting away and wetting a hook and seeing what you can pull out.
All right. So favorite species to fish for?
Oh, definitely a bass,
Okay.
largemouth bass. So,
Okay.
funnest fish to catch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you have one place to fish tomorrow. You can get on any plane, any train. You can go anywhere in the world. Wow. Where are you going to go fish tomorrow?
Yeah, I've never been to Alaska to go fishing, but I've heard so many great stories about Alaska fishing. That's one place that if you told me tomorrow I could get on a plane and go to, I'd go do some fishing in Alaska and fishing for whatever.
Okay.
Some of the funnest fishing I've had has down in New Orleans going red fishing and enjoyed catching them. But that's a lot of work because what people don't realize is when you're catching those big fish, you're also exhausting yourself, and it's a lot of work to be able to reel one of them things in. So, but yeah, if I had that opportunity right now, and one day I will do it, but that just always seems like a fun trip to me.
Okay.
So,
We might be coming back to that here shortly then.
oh yeah,
All right. So now we're going to play a little game. I know you don't get to play many games during your workday, so we're going to change things up for you a little bit. I want you to give me the first word that pops in your mind. Just whatever comes to mind, real quick. Georgia Southern University.
oh evil. Are you kidding? Georgia Southern. What made you bring that name up? So.
I just random word
all
pairing.
right, evil's a little strong. Let's say rival. Rival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I did
Yeah.
say the first word that came to mind, just to be fair. All right. Charlotte.
Wow, wonderful. I was thinking wonderful city, great city, beautiful city. Charlotte is one of those places that people who have never been here, when they come, they're just surprised and taken aback by what our city is and what it stands for. I just think it's a wonderful city, and one that I'm very fortunate that I made the choice to move here after college.
Policing.
Difficult. Very difficult. That would have been a different word 2-3 years ago. That would have been a different word 10 or 15 years ago. Because I love this profession. I love what I do. I love the people that do it, that do this work all across the country. But the challenges that we have right now in policing are very, very difficult and very challenging, because we know that what we do in our city doesn't just affect our city. It's no longer this officer did something wrong in your city and they will address it there. This is now anything national that happens in policing affects the entire profession. And that makes it just extremely difficult on all kinds of ends, whether it's recruiting, whether it's the profession, the policies that you put in place, the public presence that you have, the calls for service that our officers are answering. It just makes it a lot more difficult to be a police officer now.
Last word. Leadership.
Noble. When I think of leadership and what are the traits and characteristics that are needed, you have to be a noble. I feel like this is a noble profession, and the leadership has to be just as noble to uphold the integrity of what this profession stands for. And even through all of the stuff that we have to deal with, all of the negative that's out there about the profession, we have to stand tall. We have to stick our chest out, and we have to still go out there and do our job, which we swore to protect and serve. And we can't let those distractions take away from that. And that's not for everyone to be able to do. And at the same time, we're faced with staffing issues and calls for services increasing, but we cannot stop doing what we're doing. And you have to be able to, in a noble way, take on that challenge and continue to lead this department.
And you've hit on several things there about recruiting and this job isn't for everyone and what it takes. So going back over 30 years ago to where you first started, what made you want to get into this job?
People are surprised to hear when I say I didn't want to get into this job. And I couldn't imagine if I were 22 22, 23, 24 years old now, that I don't know if, because of my mentality back then, if I would have even applied for the position here. So back in the early 90s, when I came out of college, we were in the middle of a recession and no one was hiring. The economy was poor. And a friend of mine actually talked me into applying for the police department. And my first response was, why would I do that? I don't want to be a police officer. And so I went ahead and applied. And what I was told back then is that, hey, if you want to be a police officer, it takes about a year before they even call you, before they even start doing your work, if you make it that far. And so I had no expectation of hearing anything. And it was 3 months when I started getting the phone calls about, I was assigned a recruiter and started doing my background information. But what I did immediately was to do some research on what the job was all about. I went and I knew some police officers who worked out at a YMCA where I was doing some work as a fitness instructor there, and began talking with them. And I started inquiring more and learned that there is a whole lot more to being a police officer than being my only knowledge of being a police officer was a patrol officer. Yeah, and I thought that entailed stopping cars and chasing people and all the stuff you see on TV. And once I realized that, there was nothing against saying I did not want to do that, but I did not see a career in doing that. But when I saw what the police department offers career-wise, the more I looked into that, the more interested I became. And as the recruiter started continuing to call me and getting more and more information, the more interested I became in saying, this went from something that I just filled out an application just to be doing it to something that now this is something I have a passion to do and I wanted to do. And, that's where we have to get people nowadays. There's some people that are probably out there that are thinking about doing this job but not really sure. But we should know that if we get them involved and get them more about what the job is, then maybe there'll be that excitement about it and wanting to turn that job into a career.
That is something I've never really heard you expound on. I've heard you talk about that first part before, but that's just really a new part of it. So with that, really talking about how you transition from looking at this as maybe just like a fun job to where even that early on you saw the career value to it.
Yeah.
Been fulfilling?
Oh, absolutely. I realized about year 6 or 7 that I didn't want to go anywhere. And, even between years 1 and 2, I never really pursued other jobs. Between years 1 and 6, I never pursued other jobs, but I did have some interest in me coming from other professions and other careers. And some that at that point, there were times where I thought about it and even started a process in a couple and realized that that's not what I want. What I want is what I currently have at CMPD. And when I realized that, and then when I started seeing other agencies and got an opportunity to go visit other agencies and getting to know other people in this profession that work for other departments, and I realized what a great department we have. And I realized that there's not another department out there that could lure me away from CMPD. So right about year 7, I never looked back. Not rarely have I ever looked at, except towards the end of my career, looked at leaving CMPD and going somewhere else.
So in those years between 1 and 7, thinking back, what were those 1 or 2 things that made you stay, kept you here?
Wow, one of the biggest things, the people, right? We have such a great group of people, and regardless, I know we have different groups that might hang out together or that might be closer, but And all in all, it truly is like a family here. We look after each other, and being able to come through the ranks of CMPD and getting to know all of our people that of course everybody that came in with me is retired now, so I'm the old head. But at the same time, we have a great group of people. We have absolutely fantastic equipment, training, resources, and it's second to none. So we're known as a department across the country that we're on the forefront of initiatives and training and as well as technology and the equipment that we have. And when I go around the country and I talk to other chiefs and we talk about things that we have here at CMPD, just to see the look on their faces about how we're able to accomplish the equipment and staffing, the equipment and the training and things that we do have. I think it always makes me feel good to know that we're not being left behind on anything.
And so, looking back over your entire career, what was your favorite assignment?
Oh, wow. I have to say, first of all, I don't feel like I ever had a bad assignment. And I don't know if that's just my personality or not, but I've never had an assignment where I said, this is terrible, I don't want to be here. Now, I've always felt like 2 or 3 years I'm ready to try another challenge. And I think the longest I've ever been in one assignment was 5 years. But I have to say, if you want to talk about the most fun that I ever had in this profession, it has to be kind of two into one. It's the North Tryon. It was the Baker 1 Charlie 2 Drug Task Force that I was on early in my career, and then that kind of morphed into the Street Drug Interdiction unit that I went into as well. And just the fact of how we all looked at our jobs of making a difference. When I sat down in that interview, and when I was first hired or being recruited, and I had that first interview and asked the questions of why do you want to be a police officer? And you hear everybody talk about that I want to help people and I want to be there for people. I said, I want to do my part on the war on drugs. And, back then we had the crack cocaine epidemic and people were getting killed left and right over crack cocaine or dying in overdoses and things like that. And I said, I know I can't change the world by myself. I know I can't, what I do would be a very small dent in anything, but I feel like that is what my calling is, to do some work in the drug enforcement area. And so that was my goal from the start. When I became an officer and when I got cut loose and a patrol officer, anytime street drug interdiction came into my division and needed help, I was first there to say, I want to assist. That led to me becoming, being placed on the drug task force, which then led to street drug interdiction. But I say that because we had a great group of people on both the drug task force and street drug interdiction that wanted to make a difference in the communities that we served, that wanted to get drugs off the streets. And over time, things have changed on how we do that. But at the same time, the dedication of those men and women, and we just all got along, and we made our work fun. We laughed and joked, and we knew that we had a task at hand, that we wanted to make a difference and make these neighborhoods better.
And so, going one step further, favorite rank?
Oh, wow. My current rank, how about that? So, I've loved them all, and here's why I say that. It's tough to say my favorite rank. My favorite rank is the one that I'm currently in, because every rank that I would achieve, I always felt like I have to prepare for that next level, right? So when I made sergeant, I said, okay, great, I'm going to be the best sergeant that I can possibly be. How do I get to that next level to be the captain? And then once I make captain, how do I get to that next level? We didn't have lieutenants back then, but how do we get to that next level to make major? And it just every rank you make the most of it. And all of them have good moments. All of them have stressful moments that made you question if you were in the right spot or not. But at the very end of the day, I feel like at every rank I made, every rank I achieved, I made a difference in CMPD the best that I possibly could. So.
Okay. And so with that, within the last 2 years as chief,
Yeah.
you've been through a lot, or organization's been through a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm willing to bet when you got sworn in 2 years ago, you had no idea any of this was coming at us.
Well, let me just say, I knew a lot of what was going on when I got sworn in. What I didn't know is when I was offered the position and accepted the position, because that was pre-George Floyd. And when that happened, it just changed everything about what direction I wanted to see our agency go through. It changed my feelings about, how do we ensure that that this department continues to advance forward, because we took several steps back, and just the profession as a whole took several steps back. And I knew that there were going to be things that I had to do here that, one, would not be popular internally, would not be popular externally, and I knew that there was just absolutely no way that I could come in and look at this as I want to be a pleaser and make everybody happy, because that's just not possible. So there are certain decisions you're going to make that are going to make certain groups very upset with you, and then certain groups will be very happy with what you're doing and what you've tried to accomplish.
And moving from the challenges, let's talk about CMPD Serves.
Yeah.
What inspired that?
Wow, that's a story I really never tire of telling, because you talked about my favorite moments, and the lowest moment in policing was in 2020, and it was after the George Floyd incident. I was sworn in as the new chief. There was so much coming at me, not just personally but professionally, because the questioning of decision making, things that we were putting in place that came from internal, which to me that was probably the toughest to deal with, because I grew up, and the most of my adult life has been with CMPD, and I care so much about CMPD, and to have that question seemed to be more personal to me than anything. And then the external piece of everybody questioning law enforcement, not just CMPD, but just having to constantly answer why you do things and why certain policies are in place. And anytime any officer, there was no benefit of the doubt on anything. So anything that happened was you had to get out in front of and explain to the public, and hopefully they would accept your explanation of things that have happened. So that was probably the most difficult. And at the lowest point, within a few months of each other, my father passed away, and then a few months later, my brother passes away. I had an uncle that passed away that I was close to. I had a good friend that I went to high school that he committed suicide. There's so much more that I had to stop and take a deep breath and say, what in the world is going on, and what else is going to happen next? And so my wife and I were driving home from somewhere, and one of the things that I always want to make sure is that we have dinner together, that we usually try to cook something at the house or whatever. And there was that string of time we just were not able to do that because I was always working, had very little time at home. So we're driving one day, and we just said, well, let's just stop at Chick-fil-A and get something and bring back. Well, that experience there, everybody, the friendliness, the consistency of the food, just the fact the customer service was impeccable. And I looked at my wife and I said, wow, every time we come here, it is just, you just feel valued, right? And I brought that back to one of our executive staff meetings. And when we're talking, and I just was mentioning my experience, because at that one moment, at my very lowest point, I'd forgotten all about everything that was going on just because of my experience at Chick-fil-A, just because I drove through that drive-through and I was greeted and I was treated friendly. And that's what I try to tell people. This is not about Chick-fil-A, right? This is about the feeling, how that feeling was at the moment that I was at my lowest point. It could have been a retail store. It could have been a grocery store. It could have been anywhere that made you feel and take away from what you were going through. So I looked at that, and as I talked to the executive staff, I said, why can't, and I told them the story, and I said, why can't we do something similar in our profession? Why can't we be day makers for people? Why can't we make people's day? Just because you have a bad incident doesn't mean you have to have a bad experience with your encounter with the police. And Sandy De La Sua is in the room, and she mentioned at the time that she knows the individual that actually has done some work with Chick-fil-A, Ritz-Carlton, these groups and these companies that are just fantastic at the customer service aspect, and that makes you the ones that make you want to come back to their businesses just because of how they make you feel valued. And it from that, it led to a conference call with John DeJulius of the DeJulius Group, and we had that conversation, and it just went so well. It went about as perfect as you could have it, because everything we talked about was everything I envisioned when I talked about why can't we implement customer service. And that really is the spark of it all, and that's where it all started out, and that's where we are today. We've done some tremendous work with the training that's put in place, with all the initiatives that we've put in place to make CMPD Serves a success.
And so, let's say looking forward another year from where we are with CMPD Serves, what do you hope this program achieves, and where do you see that program a year from now?
I think what I hope is it makes officers intentional and gives them a thought of when they have interactions with other people. And that doesn't mean just, your person on the street. That means with each other internally as well. When you have those interactions, that I'm going to be intentional to make sure that it's a good interaction, that when all is said and done, that you walk away feeling good about that conversation or about that person that you came in contact with. And you're not going to accomplish that all the time, but I feel like if you're intentional about it and you at least set that goal for yourself, then we can make a huge difference. Not just with, again, not just internally, but with everybody you come in contact with. I've often said, too, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I look at, I get complaints all the time about, this officer did this or this officer did that. And when you review it and look at the body-worn camera footage or whatever, it's not always a violation that the officer committed, but it's more of the officer could have avoided this coming to my office by just how they treated that person, right? If they would have been, it doesn't take any effort. It doesn't take any more time to say or do something that is geared more towards making someone's day rather than making them upset enough to where they're going to complain. And I always laugh because I know that New York has implemented a customer service initiative up in NYPD as well, and we were up there and talking to some of the executive with NYPD at a major city chiefs conference, and their presentation was the chief, or I forgot the rank of the individual there, but he made a comment about he was out on a scene and they were closing the street like they normally do for an event, and somebody asked the officer, "Hey, why are you closing the street?" And the officer's response was, "Well, how long have you lived here?" In a smart way. And the chief had a good point. He could have made just enough, the same effort into simply saying something positive, or being a little more friendly to that person. It wouldn't have taken any more effort, but it would have gone a long way towards, it would have changed the whole concept of what that individual he was communicating with. So that's what I'm trying to I'm trying to get people to understand, is being a day maker is not something that takes that much more effort. Then you spend just as much effort being a day maker as you do ruining someone's day as well. So it's real simple.
Excellent. Shifting gears a little bit, going back to when you took your oath, you made a statement about how much your family has had to sacrifice
Yeah.
for your career over the years. Let's stay right there for a second. I think all of us that have been in this a while, we get to those points where we even, we stop and we acknowledge how much we've given up at home. But, particularly for the young folks coming on, how have you made it work? I mean, 30 plus years in law enforcement, you've held so many positions here. To my recollection, you've never had what I would consider, one of those cush jobs. You've always been in the mix, so to speak. How did you make it work?
Wow. I ask myself that sometimes. And it's funny, my wife and I even go back to when our kids were little and between daycare, summer camps, after school. How in the world were we able to make sure they got picked up on time or dropped off on time? And we, they played sports, so being able to go to the sporting events, to me that was probably the most difficult parts of this career, are the times when I had to work and I couldn't be at an event, the sporting event or something that they were involved in. And I literally, it literally would give me anxiety, because knowing that they're out on the football field playing and I'm at work having to do something at work that I was missing. So, I have the best wife. I think she was molded just for me, because for anyone to have to endure the job just as much. I mean, she's seen as close as anybody of what we've had to go through, what we have to go through in this profession. And so my sacrifices were also her sacrifices, and yet she stood strong through all of it, and rarely complained, and she understood. And then at the same point, my kids were the same, because they grew up knowing the responsibilities of my job. And I remember one time that it really hit me when we're at the dinner table, and we just started eating dinner, me and my family, and my phone rings. And before I could even look at it, the response, one of my sons said, "Dad's got to go." Just that was what they had become accustomed to, is that regardless of what we're doing, if that phone rings, I'm going to end up having to leave. And I had to really think about it at that point and say, wow, this is really taxing, not just on me, but on them. And that was the point in my career where I said, you know what, I'm going to stop, because I had a habit of coming home, we'd have dinner, we'd sit down on the couch, everybody would watch TV or whatever, and then I was pulling up my computer and working, and checking emails and responding to emails. And I realized at that point that I have to be able to balance, work-life balance, a little bit better than what I was doing. But we've endured it and made it through, and I think that's a testament to my wife and kids also.
And what keeps you motivated after all these years? I mean, you're probably in the most demanding role you've ever had with the police
Yeah.
department. What keeps you coming and doing this day in, day out?
Honestly, change. I was asked a question when I first started, is like that. Wow, you took the job and you're starting a job at the worst possible moment to start a chief's job. And my response was, I disagree with that, because I'm starting it at the best time, because there is change that needs to be done, and I can be the agent for that. So as we go through, particularly we talk about CMPD Serves, that's something that I get excited about seeing through. And where are we going to end up with this? To the idea that maybe CMPD Serves never ends. We have community policing that has never ended. And I want to be able to implement something similar to that in our agency. And if I can accomplish that, if we can look at it down the road where chiefs beyond me sees the value in this and wants to create their own version and continue it forward, then I don't know if I could be any more proud of what I've done within CMPD.
That's a heck of a thing to say after 30 years. That's great.
Yeah, it is. And the best thing about it is I'm in a position to be able to push something like this forward. This could have been an idea I had as a captain, a major, a deputy chief, that may not have gotten anywhere.
Right.
So when you start putting yourself in the seat of being the chief and seeing the people that get behind you that are passionate about it, that help create this, and the concept and idea was mine, but the hard work, the leg work, there's so many people that hold that that held that responsibility, and that they're the ones that should be praised for the work that was put into it to get to where we are today. We were getting international and national attention for CMPD Serves, and we are still to this day getting national attention for the interest in what we have been able to accomplish with CMPD Serves.
And I hope people can see if we put this up on video. I can definitely see it on your face when you talk about this and talk about your motivation to keep coming in day after day to push through this grind.
Yeah.
Your face just lights up. So what do we say to that younger person who wants to be a police officer with the CMPD?
Yeah.
That and I guess what I'm getting at is I sit here and if I talk to somebody from probably corporate America who's your same age and responsibility, they're not going to sit here and glow about it. There's not going to be that motivation, that enthusiasm. I just wish we could take here. How do you describe that? What do you say to that young person wanting to be a police officer here with CMPD?
That there are not very few professions, if between policing and the military maybe, that can have such an effect. We can take away someone's freedom. We can make arrest and take somebody to jail. We also have the authority to do the extreme when those situations arise, and that is a huge responsibility. So when you look at how important and how crucial our contact with the public is, and how much difference we can make in our country with just this profession, and the impact that we have on lives. Corporate America doesn't have the impact on lives as much as interactions with police officers. And that's not any shade on corporate America. I'm just saying it's a different concept, that when we go out to the scene, it's often somebody's worst day. And like I've said many times, is how do we become the best part of somebody's worst day? And so we have a huge responsibility, a huge weight on our shoulders. One, that we don't get to make mistakes without criticism, and we don't get to treat people poorly and to mess up on the streets. We have a huge burden with our profession, and so there's a lot of people that think that we should be perfect in all that we do, and that's just not possible. It's not going to happen. So that's what gets me excited about the job, is because of the challenges. And I grew up, whether it was growing up in small town in Tennessee or playing sports, I grew up facing challenges head on, and having to endure what I needed to do to be the best. And that doesn't fall short on what I want to see with CMPD either.
Okay. So moving from that young person just thinking about or just starting here, what do you say to future leaders?
To future leaders is never, in my saying, and I have this actually on a small wooden plaque in my office, never stop being the best that you can be. And I've said that since my early days in high school and college, because I I know that I was never the best athlete on the field. I was never the fastest or the strongest, but nobody was going to outwork me, and I always felt like I have to be the best that I can be, and whatever happens outside of that is going to happen, right? Because nobody. I never looked at it to think that I would reach some of the levels that I did in sports. So as I tell young recruits that come in, when you go out there and you be the best rookie on the force, right? Then once you accomplish that, your goal is to be the best officer. Then you want to be the best sergeant. You want to be the best lieutenant. You want to be. It just continues. Every time you reach a level and make those goals, you have to set that other one to be the best that you can possibly be. Now, you put in the work to be the best that you can possibly be. If you don't accomplish that, that's okay, because you know that you gave it your all. When you go through and when you're taking a test in college, and you know that you've studied and you've done everything you could, and you go in and you still make a B or a C on that test, you might be disappointed in that B or a C, but you know you didn't leave anything on the table saying, I should have studied this or I should have studied that. You did everything you possibly could to get the highest grade that you could make.
And so reflecting back, 2 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Man, at this stage of my career, I can't even answer that.
Okay.
No, I think that all I can say is there's more to do here.
Okay.
I don't. I know there's been rumors and things about when I'm leaving and all that, and when I hear those, well, that's news to me, because I have not said or even looked at any point to where I'm saying that this is my stopping point. I just think that I'm still loving the job. I still love what we're doing, and I still feel like we have a lot more to do here. So.
Okay. So we'll fast forward down the road. Mm-hmm. You've retired. That young police officer's walking through our hallway and they see those portraits of our previous chiefs of police.
Yeah.
They see Johnny Jennings' picture.
Yeah. What
do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your legacy to be?
Wow. I said it in my induction when I was announced as the new police chief. And yeah, I mean, there's no shyness about saying I want to be the best ever, right? I want somebody to say, well, wow, we had some really great chiefs, but he stands out. And that's not for me to decide. That's not, but I'm still, that's my goal. And if that doesn't happen, if that's not what I'm remembered by, I gave 110%. I gave everything I could to this agency for 30 years. And I look back and I have no regrets. I have no qualms about anything that I've done with this agency, I feel like I'm going to leave this agency a better place than when I came here, and that's what excites me. I know that everything I decide to do or whatever may not be the most popular across the board. I hope that when I'm long gone and people look back, that they'll see that my commitment to this agency was strong, and that I did make a difference.
And when you do achieve that next rank being retirement. First
Is
year,
that a rank? Yeah.
First year of retirement, three
Yeah.
things you're going to do.
Well, I'm going to fish, travel, and golf. So I want to make sure that I get to do the things that I don't always get to do now. The things that I'm trying to squeeze in now in my spare time, what little spare time I have, are the things that I want to make throughout my day. And I know I'd probably get tired if I did that every day, but I do want to be able to decompress and say, this is what I'm going to do for however many months, and then maybe jump back into doing something to where I have a routine and more of a purpose. So I look forward to that day at some point, but at the same time, it's the work-life balance soon is going to be the life-work balance. So I want to put the life in front of the work.
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
Chief, you certainly deserve it. We love having you here, but
you.
there's no one else I can think of that deserves it more than you.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're basically getting kicked out of here. I can sit here and talk to you all day.
All right.
And it's been a real pleasure sitting down with you. And again, I'm Steve Fishback, Public Affairs Office, and sit down with our Chief of Police, Johnny Jennings. Thank you.